Peace and welcome to the culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation, folks. Today, we got a lot of good discussions, so make sure y'all stay with us. Today, let's talk about the return of the CBC week. We've been showing you here on Black Star Network all that's been happening at the Congressional Black Caucus 51st Annual Legislative Conference, a conference that Black Star is on, has been covering. We got Brother Roland Martin has been there hosting panels, having conversations about policy and looking to the future for Black America. We'll talk a little bit about that. Also, let's talk about the crisis facing men and boys and the aspiration gap, how a new book is coming out to highlight that men and boys in this country are falling behind. And now we got to ask ourselves the question, what are we going to do about it? Then later we check in and talk about Meg The Stallion, how she's deciding to just put her foot into mental health. So we'll have that conversation, and Lizzo and a whole lot more. So stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, good afternoon. Happy Friday and welcome to the culture right here on the Black Star Network. Yes, it is Friday. I know you're feeling it like I'm feeling. Thank God it's Friday. It's been a heck of a week, folks, a heck of a week. We got a lot of great conversations for you today. We're going to first start off kicking off the discussions around and about the Congressional Black Caucus 51st Annual Legislative Conference that they're having, that's happening now in Washington, D.C. If you haven't checked us out at blackstarnetwork.com, you'll know that we have been streaming and covering all of the various events and seminars and panel discussions. Brother Roland has been hosting a couple of discussions, and more importantly, talking about the importance, the value of the CBC, especially after a 2-year hiatus from meeting in person. So this is coming like as a big family reunion. But today I wanted to just highlight some of the things that the Congressional Black Caucus has been working on the policy side. And take a look, folks, deliberate progress while we celebrate the Congressional Black Caucus. 51 years. Folks, it was back in 1971 that 13 Black political leaders decided to stand up. This was just a few years after the assassination of Dr. King, a couple of years after the Voting Rights Act was ratified. I mean, big moments. And now 51 years later, we're still looking at what is going to be the future of Black America. I want to bring in culture crew member Rashad, my man Rashad Staten, who is an analyst, he's an advocate, he's a nonprofit leader, and of course, he is also a political scientist. Sort of kind of, I guess we could put him in that space, man. He loves politics, talking about it, especially when you're talking about people power movements. And so we want to have this conversation to look at some of the things that the CBC has been focusing on, especially for this year, for this particular moment that we are finding ourselves in this country. So when we get a chance, let's bring Rashad in. My man, Rashad.
Hey, peace, Farajii. Hey, man.
What's happening, brother? How you feeling? Happy Friday, Rashad.
Happy Friday. It's my favorite holiday, brother. I'm glad we get it once a week, once a week. Celebrate the holiday early.
You said it's my favorite holiday. I hear that. I definitely hear that, bro. Hey, look, man, let's talk a little bit about the Congressional Black Caucus, because this is a situation I think that needs to be discussed. Like I said, they've been doing some virtual stuff because of COVID, but now, everybody's folks are coming back into DC to take a look at what's going to be the future of Black America. And I was reading the Griot, April Ryan, she wrote a piece for the Griot about the CBC week. And, she highlighted how one brother said that this is one of the few spaces where you had Black elite and everyday folks coming together in one space. So I found that to be very, very fascinating and interesting that, this is all happening. And, if you were to say, okay, CBC, Congressional Black Caucus, and here, I'm going to be honest with you, Rashad. I have been critical about Black political leadership in general. I think I've been probably very critical of it since I started my career in media, because I feel like there's so much on the table for us. There's so many agenda items that we need to look at. There's so many things that we need to address that we don't have time for, quote unquote, traditional politics. We need revolutionary politics at this point, right?
Yeah.
And, my sentiment comes from a place of watching young people, young leaders like yourself and others in Baltimore and around the country saying, look, we need some drastic, dramatic change, not incremental, not, go along to get along type of political approach. What's your take on the CBC celebrating their 51st anniversary with this conference in the future of Black America? What do you see happening?
Yeah, I am a component of a supporter of the CBC and the cause of what the aim of the convening of thought leadership of our elected officials from the federal level to providing that accessibility, those to the grassroots, to the local, to the state. I have myself in recent passings probably attended the last in-person CBC week a few years ago prior to COVID in the virtual settings that they had, but I have been a part of them in the past and have found them to be fruitful. Also a place of regular convenience to, maintain momentum, right? And I've seen the places, what it offers to those that are young political aspirants and those that's just civically engaged, a space to, rub shoulders with these elected officials that you often would not have the space to do so, or to hear from them directly, interact with their staffers, parliamentarians, other elected officials, and other thought leaders that are behind the scenes of politics, right? And I think it's always fruitful in just understanding the history of the CBC and how it has grown tremendously with its impacts over the year. I agree with your sentiments as well that small incremental change is not necessarily a win, but when we have these regular convenings and we can acknowledge that it's in its 51st year following those historical moments of when it gave birth, shows that we as a people have found the need and still see the value of creating these spaces. And I think what we should do is honor that, because it does play a part in it. Even more recently, I'm talking to a young man that I mentor, and he just asked me about Black Lives Matter movement. And coincidentally, we're talking about the CBC, and this year itself having some of the highest turnout as far as participation in attendees only speaks to the times that we're in at the moment, right? That the Black Lives Matter movement is a movement, is our civil rights movement today, that we should acknowledge, praise, and give space and honor to, but understand that the value and the uniqueness of it, that our movements of today in 2022 is much of social awareness, to build some level of awareness, continuity, and some unification, rather uniformity. And what that allows us to do is reconvene on the priorities that we best see, but also create some measurement of accountability. Anybody that's well aware of politics knows that a stroke of a pen is not going to change the social norms and the social indicators that we have to navigate every year. But if we have these elected officials that are frequently convening with other thought leaders, young and old, it puts a fire under us to not lose sight of the larger vision. And I think that's the space in how we should recognize and value CBC Week.
Absolutely. I want to throw some things up there, just some facts, Rashad, because I think that for especially some of our younger watchers, and some maybe even some of our older watchers, they may not know exactly like who's a part of the CBC. So let's post this right there. Post this real quick, Keenan. The caucus is led by Chairwoman Joyce Betty, who has 57 members across the House and Senate, one of the largest CBC memberships in history, folks. So this CBC membership group that we have, there are 57 members, 58 with the chairwoman, one of the largest in history. 3 members serve in House leadership positions: Majority Whip James Clyburn of South Carolina, House Democratic Caucus Chair Hakeem Jeffries out of New York, House Democratic Steering and Policy Committee Co-Chair Barbara Lee out of California, Moreover, this CBC claims an additional 6 full committee chairs. Congresswoman Maxine Waters out of California on the financial services, Congressman Bobby Scott on education and labor, Congressman David Scott on agriculture, he's out of Georgia, Congressman Gregory Meeks out of New York on foreign affairs, Congressman Benny Thompson on homeland security, and Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson of Texas on science, space, and technology. You already know that Benny Thompson, he chairs the House Special Committee for January the 6th. James Clyburn chaired the House Select Subcommittee on the COVID crisis. And so when we look at those things right there, just putting those names out there, again, letting folks know who who's representing us and our interests in Congress. Now, y'all got to remember, one of the big things that the CBC came out, and I'm sure, Rashad, you know this history, that the CBC has always been known to be the quote unquote conscience of Congress, the conscience of Congress. And I've heard former presidents, I've heard Joe Biden, I've heard many other presidents have said that the role of the CBC is to serve as a moral meter, for lack of a better word. They're the moral, I would say the moral standard for Congress. And I mean, whether people will agree with this or not, I mean, because that's a lot, right? You know what I'm saying? Like you have, like anybody that goes into public service, Rashad, should have high moral values, right?
Correct.
So
yes.
You put this on Black folks. And this, I mean, like I said, it might, you know, cause people to think twice about it, but I would say we need to have the same conversation about white representatives in Congress, right? We need to have of Latino representatives. You should not go into any level of public service and not have some moral values or try to be morally sound in your governance. But that's the role that the CBC plays. Here's the roles the CBC plays. All right, so here's the other part of it. Kenan, let's post this. Let's talk a little bit about some of the big accomplishments thus far with the CBC. Take a look at this, folks. Here are some of the big accomplishments for the CBC this year. And we might just go back. Let's just go back to there we go. There we go. One more over. Let's go down. Let's go. There we go. Let's go back. There we go. Boom. There we go. So some of the things that we need to look at. So here are some of the, as it celebrates its highest membership, right, since its forming, several of whom currently chair House committees on Capitol Hill. Now, let me go back. Let's go back to the other one real quick, Kenan, here, as we look at this, because there's the bullet points of all of the kind of like wins that we've seen. Couple of things. The CBC secured historic investments in HBCUs. Now, you might not see this on the screen, but just follow me just for a quick moment. The CBC secured historic investment in HBCUs, along with roughly $100 billion in federal contracts for small, disadvantaged, and Black-owned businesses. So I want people to know that. They secured investment and $100 billion in federal contracts for small, disadvantaged, and Black-owned businesses. The CBC also pushed to ban chokeholds and no-knock warrants by federal law enforcement. So there's that point. Then I'm talking about this current membership of CBC. This current membership of CBC supported the Biden administration's efforts to aggressively combat housing discrimination, protect Black-owned home values, and cap the price of insulin. So that's another win. Important to note, this CBC led the way to secure 15. Now we could throw this up on the screen, please, Kenan. This CBC led the way to secure $15 billion in dedicated Environmental Protection Agency funding. Take a look, folks, to replace lead water pipes across the nation, and $65 billion to make high-speed broadband accessible and affordable to all Americans. Additionally, CBC members have helped to pass major legislation such as the American Rescue Plan Act, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, the PACT Act, the most sweeping gun safety law in decades, and the Inflation Reduction Act, which is a climate tax and healthcare package. So I'm throwing it out there, Rashad, because some people might say, well, CBC ain't doing nothing. And I know sometimes we can be so overly critical about our representatives. We could be super overly critical about, what we're doing. Well, I ain't seen nothing. I ain't hear nothing. Look, we benefiting from something.
I
We
certainly said
benefit.
it. Yeah. And as you read those things, and I'm glad that you took the time to acknowledge them and speak to them for those that are not, I want to say, as politically inclined or astute to what is being happening. Like you said, it is the consciousness of Congress. It is the moral fibers, like James Baldwin will always say, America has to have something in place where we can always assess the moral fiber of this country. And knowing that the CBC operates by tag, but also culturally and morally as the conscience of Congress, shows that it is the sounding board. And then when we look at what we have been we have been advocating, galvanizing, and protesting, as far as our advocacy efforts as Black folk of the diaspora, especially in this country, are on these type priorities that you've listed out on the acts that they passed, even down in how they're actually showing up and manifesting in our everyday lives. We are well aware that the ARPA funding that is being that has been federally passed now is now trickling down to our state and local levels, in which we're seeing, specifically in Baltimore, an insurgence of sustainable funding that's now going to grassroots leaders, right? But it also calls into play of our importance of knowing how the interconnectedness from the federal level also plays to providing opportunities, programming, and policies that directly impact us in our everyday lives, right?
Yeah,
From gun safety laws to opera, even down to roads and infrastructures. All of this plays a part into the long de jure segregational policies that have infringed our progression as Black folks,
yeah,
right? We are not conscious of how our transportations, our accessibilities from communities to job and employability all entails directly impacts our livelihoods and how we become more civically engaged people. We lose sight of that, right? And what the CBC does, it brings us back into who are the elected officials that we can hold accountable to advocate on our behalf and not get caught up into representative politics where we think that the president ourselves is the all and be all. No, our elected officials that are on Capitol Hill are the ones that put in place federal policies that's going to directly impact us on a local and a closer proximity level. So we as a
absolutely.
people, if you have the privilege, you have the mobility, and you have the means to be a part of the CBC efforts and the CBC weekend, I employ everybody to do it because these conversations are happening.
Yeah,
You're in these spaces, you're at these convenings, these smaller sessions, or the larger convenings and the assemblies. You hear from these elected officials, you hear from thought leaders, you hear from celebrities, you hear from entertainers, you hear from corporations, you hear from business owners, all having these intentional and timely conversations of how we can enact from policy to now going into action. And I'm just I am pleased. I'm not saying that we have found the golden nugget, but we are at least trekking at the gold mine to make sure that we strike something, right? And we have
absolutely.
seen these progressions. And I think that's most importantly that we learn, like you said, who is our elected officials in this. And what we have seen with this is the emergence of the 58 active members have shown that there has been a conscious passing of the baton, which we often do not see in the political setting itself, but down to having our representative Maxine Water, who's reclaiming her time. She's also reclaiming the leadership. And we know that they do an exceptional job. Some of our elected officials are propelling the next generation of thought leaders that's going to move the work forward. And I think the CBC provides that frequent convening for us to acknowledge who is the next leadership, but also who is our long-term elected officials that have always been advocates for change and that understand the historical knowledge and value and the power that we have when we are convening our own people. We know we
No
get the
doubt.
lesser end of the political stick all the time. So it's purposeful that we create a cohort or a convening where we can come back to the table year after year, track our progressions from administration to administration, and make sure that we don't get lost in the rhetoric and the passing of bipartisan distractions that we often are subjugated with, regardless of it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I couldn't have said it better, Rashad. I want to just let folks know that this year's conference theme is advancing our power, advancing our purpose, elevating our power. So that helps us to keep on track. Now, let me get to a couple of our online culture crew members as they're checking in to share their thoughts about CBC weekend and the return of this annual legislative conference that happens. That is a dynamic conference. We still got some work to do, folks. Let's just put this in the right context, Richard. It's a conference. It's an agenda that is still evolving, right? So just because they worked on A, B, and C doesn't mean that D, E, F is just out the window. It's a evolving situation. The interest of Black people in this country, the political and social and economic interests and educational interests, these things are changing. These things are changing, and it takes some time. And look, I'm all for dramatic changes, but I also recognize that in politics and in any type of social change, it's the irony is if you move too fast, then people will get thrown off balance, and they won't know how to accept that. If you move too slow, then you're gonna lose the interest of the people because the progress is not being made in an efficient amount of time. So you really got to strike at the right time, at the right moment, and you got to have the right momentum in place, right, to kick things really off. And that's how policy work is. You know what I mean? Like if the sentiment of the people is going a certain direction, then it's easier for you to put certain policy in place, which is why I'm gonna come back to this. I'm coming back to police reform. There is no reason why in this country we didn't get a real police reform policy enacted, a real policy that speaks to the issue of police reform, whether it's talking about the issue of qualified immunity, whether it's talking about the issue of keeping tracks of police-involved shootings. There's no reason. I mean, we had the momentum and it got in the way, and the politics from the other side of the aisle to all this other stuff got in the way. And so you gotta, in order for these things to happen, the people, you and me, folks that are checking in, my online culture crew, we have to drum up that energy to get things happening. It don't come out of nowhere. I mean, yes, economics is one thing, but when you're talking about social public policy, there has to be like a sentiment around that piece of legislation in order to get it moving. All right, let me just go to this very quickly before we take our first pause. Sandy, you checked in. Sandy W, you said the CBC and the Dems, not necessarily linked in all policy, have a message issue in common. We don't know what they're doing until a show like this need to talk to their citizens more. Yeah, you're seeing some footage right now from the CBC that's happening in Washington, D.C. this week. But I'm right with you, Sandy. I think that there's a messaging problem, right? And that's why we're talking about it today. That's why I personally wanted to highlight certain things of it, because we don't know. And here's the other part about it. That's not necessarily, you see Brother Roland Martin hosting this panel, and I think this is the panel, if I'm not mistaken, and correct me, King Keenan and Joel, if I'm wrong, I think this is the panel where he talks about transportation and connecting communities. Please let me know if I'm right or wrong on that. Okay, this is the Voting Rights Brain Trust. This is the Voting Rights Brain Trust 2022 midterm elections, protecting our voting rights from the courts to the ballot. And this, of course, is moderated by our very own Roland Martin. So this is about how we move forward into 2022. Is this streaming right now, Keenan? Let me know if this is streaming on our Black Star Network or not. And then we can certainly, okay, this is not streaming yet, but it will be streaming. Trust and believe, we will show you all of the things that you need to see from the CBC. But this is the thing, though, Rashad. The thing is, like Sandy said, it's a messaging problem. Mm-hmm. Now, part of that is not the CBC's fault, right? Correct. Because let me just tell you why. If you want to know about what's going on, if you wanted to know about what's going on with your favorite team, your favorite celebrity, your favorite cause, you go out and seek that information.
Correct. I agree 100%.
If you really want to know, you can go straight to the website. It's not like they got some dark site.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They don't have no dark site. You could just go right to your favorite website. And you can just pull it up. Go to the Congressional Black Caucus and see it for yourself. See, and here's the thing. In this modern time, bro, we can't make excuses for the push of a button.
Right.
We can't act like, oh man, well, I ain't even know. Bro, you go to get sports scores. You look up movies and all of those other things. We get information so quick. You mean to tell me we can't look on cbc.house.gov?
Hey, so that what you're hitting is exactly why I love how you introduced me today on the day segment, but also why I love politics, right? I raised as an athlete only to be not scouted and needing to get admitted into school and find a way to get affordable education. That politics granted me that privilege to gain it, right? To gain that education. And once I started working in politics, I literally came back to Baltimore and said, you know what, a athletic sport is not going to change the dynamics and the success and the trajectory of myself and my family and the large community. That we must be mindful and put enough attention and time into understanding who is there at the decision-making tables with the stroke of a pen that's going to directly impact our lives. It doesn't, how much LeBron James scores in a playoff game is not going to change what is our level of income, what is our pay rate, the laws that protect us as we travel from home to our communities and protect us when we're engaging with law enforcement. It is those persons with the suits and ties on, regardless of what side of the aisle on, that's red and blue, that's going to probably dictate our lives and what we have to experience every day. And if we as a society and as a community start to put our elected officials, our thought leaders, and our grassroots leaders on a level and a platform and a podium as much as we give accolades and recognition to our entertainers, athletes, and things of that sort, then we will always get the lower end of the pendulum when it comes to progressive change, because we are giving the wrong attention to the wrong people when we need the right people to be in place to speak on our behalf, advocate on our behalf, or knowing how do we work collaboratively with each other. I think we should be tuned in. These things should be commercialized. They should be, It's also at the fault of understanding politics. You need to know where to go and search for these things. You need to be, there needs to be invitations. We need to flood each other. We need to be sending links, and we need to be buying flights, right? To go and attend DC once a year to make sure that we are in this space and use those grassroots leaders to go back and have these conversations in their respective communities. And because these things are showing up every day. The fact that they pushed the legislation on banning chokeholds and no knock warrants, but these are happening on the federal level. So once they're pushed on a federal legislative level, now we have to take it and be mindful of, now let's take it to our state level. Let's take it to our local level. Now that we have these federal policies, now we got to put in place practices on a state and a local level and retrain our law enforcement, or continues to have reassessing community policing and things of that sort. We as a community must do the next part. We can't wait. We are, like my good brother Sean Dove say, we are the cavalry we've been waiting on. And if we continuously wait for a savior to come and get us, the savior may not show up in the time that we're living. So if we want to see, we need to be the change that we want to see. We go and be convened and hear from those that are in thought leadership and power and influence, but we got to retain and exercise our own power at the same time and make no excuse that you don't know the answer. Not when we got Siri, not that we got Alexa, and we ain't got to search nothing in encyclopedia. You can literally press one button and find all the information that you need in a timely manner.
Hey, look, man, real quick. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I think that's why, again, we need to have these conversations. When you look up what's happening this weekend, it's only very few places that actually are talking about this, right? And I'm saying even from Black media, we should be there. We should be present. I don't care if the New York Times doesn't cover this, or the LA Times, or the Baltimore Sun, or whatever the case may be. They may not cover this, right? But we need to cover this. We need to cover this, and especially when we're 50 years out of what happened in Gary, Indiana, with the Black Political Convention. I mean, all of this stuff is happening. All of this stuff is happening at the same time, and it's not by coincidence. There's an awakening. There's a consciousness in this country that, and there is a sentiment really that we can tap into. We just need to find the vehicles to take us to the places that we need to be. Very quickly, Conscious Thought, my guy, you checked in. You said the access to the information that can help us is readily available to us. We have to know where it is and how to utilize it. Communication, connection, consciousness to coalesce and conquer. I like how you did that, Conscious Thought. And you're right. You absolutely right. In this day and time in 2022, if you are ignorant of anything relating to the liberation and to the progress of Black people, of marginalized communities in America, guess what? Y'all gonna hate me, but that's because it's by choice. It's by choice.
Say it again.
If you are completely ignorant of anything, if you don't know what's going on, that's by choice. Y'all hear me? That is not by, don't put that on nobody. And I know some Black folks do not like to hear this. We like, no, man, but you don't know this and that. No. No. This is how you get to be a conscious, mature, progressive group of people, citizens. That's by choice. And I'm talking about even for white people. If you are ignorant of things, of certain things that are happening in this country, I didn't know. That's by choice, because you don't want to take the time to look around and see what's happening. So you're so caught up in your little world that you're not seeing everything else. And y'all tell me, you want to know something that grinds my gears, Rashad? When somebody acts as if, like, man, I ain't even know. Like, it's one thing to be like completely ignorant in terms of, okay, just you're not exposed to a couple of things, but we can't complain as if stuff is not readily available.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Just pick up a book. Open up an app. You know what I'm saying?
Change your algorithms.
I mean, like change your whole frequency, bro. Like you can't. That's my choice. You can't be like you can't. If Black people, you can't tell me in 2022, Black people, right? And look, and I know this might sound harsh, and I'm not. This is really coming out of the space of like we got to grow up, because we've been so coddled. Because we always screaming, "Where's Black leadership? Where's Black leadership?" What do you think Black leadership has been doing? Some of the greatest Black thinkers, greatest minds, they're in their 80s. And you mean to tell me you still looking for somebody outside of you?
What we talking about?
We looking at people, we like, man, where's the next Malcolm and Martin? You are the next Malcolm. You the next Martin. Where's the next Elijah? You. Like, I mean, seriously, like, what's the point? We want to run Black leadership ragged. Mm-hmm. Raggedy, bro. We want to take them all the way to the ground. Then when they die, damn, that's messed up. Who's the next one?
You ain't recognizing and honor them in the space in which they was occupying. Come on,
and then you check this out. Here, you want to hear something funny very quickly? We run Black leadership raggedy, right? We say they ain't about nothing. We ain't doing enough. All this stuff, they pass on, they become an ancestor, right? Then guess what? We're looking for the next one. And then we wonder why young people don't want to be in leadership positions. I don't know why young people don't want to step up. Because serving Black people is hard as hell, bro. I mean, seriously, serving Black people is hard as hell. It's one of the hardest jobs in the world to serve Black people in America. It's hard as hell, bro.
Yeah, I think you hit it on that.
I know this is, I mean, we family, so we talking. We just talking right now, but this is real. This is why even the work of the CBC, like I said, I had to check myself. I had to check myself first and say, all right, let me see where I stand on certain things. Like, I can't keep complaining. I can't use my platform to complain, and not look at myself and say, okay, can I do more? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, even if we, for example, I know that, for example, the CBC, is doing some great stuff. I'm looking to say, okay, I wonder if they're going to have a conversation about reparations, or if they're going to have a conversation about, alternative political engagement outside of the two traditional parties. These are big discussions that are happening in Black America right now. Now,
Yeah.
if they don't, does that mean that these two causes or these two ideas are not valuable? No, it just means that the CBC needs some additional help.
Yep. And they need the help of the community to get to point Z.
That's it.
If they're operating and trying to navigate A through D. We need to get through Z, but they can't be, the 58 can't tackle every letter of the alphabet as far as our political agenda. Right. And I think that's what you're saying. And what we're saying, when you have shows like this, Black owned networks, Black owned businesses that are using their platforms to lift up and raise the consciousness and awareness of where we need to be knowledgeable of, when we learn of it.
We lose Rashad. Okay, Rashad, come on back in, brother, because we definitely having a conversation. But folks, let me know. And this just been on my heart. This has really been on my heart, where I felt like, look, we can't get mad at the CBC. I'm personally, I want to add accountability to Black leadership and Black political leadership, social leadership, and all of those things. I want to have a level of accountability, but at the same time, I can't keep complaining about a situation that I know that if I help to step in the gap with, or in the gap for, it could possibly change for the better. That's the place that I'm in. That's the place that I'm in. And look, trust me, I've been doing Black media work for a long time. I hear the same thing. What we need to do, what they need to do, what they need to do. See, that's the problem. See, they not boom, boom. In every city in America where Black people are found, same conversation. Whether it's Baltimore, Los Angeles, Chicago, it's the same conversation. We don't see this. We don't see that. Nah, bro. Nah. We in a different time. We're in a different space when it comes to leadership in this country, right? And the different time and the different space that when it comes to leadership in this country, requires us to get actively involved. I'm serious. That's what happens. We have to get actively involved. So I'm happy that the CBC has made some strides. I mean, look, this is, for the past couple of years, y'all know, this is probably one of the most stressful times in the American history for Black people in terms of the past five. I would say past, let me see, we'll be almost 2 years in since Trump got in office, we started to see a lot of stuff kind of just dissipate, right? As a result of that, who do you think is going to come to save us? I'll wait. Nobody. We got to think through this on our own, but we got the brilliance for it. We got the brilliance for it. We certainly got the numbers for it. And here's what we really got on our side. We got the sentiment. So many of us, or all of us, I'm gonna make a broad generalization. We are dissatisfied about something about the quality of life here as Black people in America. I don't care if you're rich or poor, you got two homes or one. I don't care if you work for the government, you work in the private sector. I don't care where you are. You are dissatisfied about something as it relates to your life in America. If you are all good, as a Black person, if you are all good about life in America, and I'm talking about across the board, I'm not talking about, just one or two things. I'm talking about across the board. If you feel like the state of Black people in this country is good, then this conversation ain't for you. But I feel like that number is so small. Y'all feel me? That number is so small compared to those of us who are dissatisfied. Because at the end of the day, no one wants to pass this shit on to their children. Come on, man. I'm going to say it just like that, because it's Friday. It's right. It's Friday. No one wants to pass this shit on to their children, man. We tired. So the CBC coming together the way they coming together this weekend, if you have relationships with any one of your elected representatives, especially these folks that are in these leadership roles, if you have a relationship with them, impress upon them man, we're going to hold you accountable, but we're going to also help. What can we do to help? Because I don't want to pass this on to my children. I don't want to pass this on to my children. In the next 20 years, we should not be talking about whether Black history should be taught in schools. In the next 20 years, we should not be talking about what is going to be the Black agenda. In the next 20 years? 20 years? For those of you who are watching and got children, grown children, teenagers and grown children, do they see this? Do they want to get involved in this? You feel what I'm saying? Like, is this what we want? Is this what they want? Is this the future they want? They might feel like, oh man, it's all good. I mean, yeah, we got a couple of setbacks, but we at a crisis point in the sustainability of our future at this point, folks. A crisis point. The voting rights situation, the equal pay situation. I mean, we could just go down the list. The CBC can't do all this by itself, though. I'm clear on that. They can't do all this by itself. And if we sit back on our hands and expect the 58 people to determine the future of millions of Black people in this country, just 58, and this is just in the political space, because we didn't even include folks from other schools of thought in that conversation, right? We don't have the pastors and the ministers and the imams. We don't have the activists there. We don't have the entertainers. I mean, you know what I'm saying? But if you expect 58 people to determine the future of a small nation of people, which is us, over a 5-day period, right? You think they're going to lock it all in? Come on. That's not happening, y'all. That is not happening. That is not happening. We got a lot of work to do and a lot of ground to cover. We celebrate the wins because that's good for the heart. That's good for the spirit. We got some wins in. Take a breath. Take a moment to reflect. Take a moment to recalibrate and regroup our efforts. Then we go right back to the battlefield. Boom. All right, what's next for us? And even in this 58, Keena, throw that list up for me one more time, brother. Throw that list up very quickly as we close out on this. The 58 people that I named. Take a look at this, folks. I'm gonna just share this with you. Look, you got to ask yourself, majority, and this is certainly no shade. I don't want y'all to think about. I don't want you to. And this is not the spirit in which I'm saying this in. Majority whip James Clyburn, Hakeem Jeffries, Barbara Lee, Maxine Waters. How old are these people? They've been in this thing for years. Bobby Scott, David Scott, Gregory Meeks, Benny Thompson. How old are these people? How old are these servants? I'm serious. How old are they? 60s, 70s, 80s. Now, we don't put them out to pasture. No, not at all. But we do have to figure out and say, okay, what's the pathway? What's the mechanism by which we can start to groom? Representative Cori Bush, the representative out of Missouri. Keena, let's post this second quote up on the screen very quickly, bro. When I got that piece around Representative, yeah. This year, CBC Week comes as the CBC's high celebrates its highest membership since its founding, 58, meaning that you got more Black people in the CBC this year than at any other point, right? Check this out. Several of whom currently chair House committees on Capitol Hill. So you got more Black people in elected roles, more Black people in leadership positions, right? Y'all follow me? Right? That means that there is an energy, folks. There's a movement. There's a sentiment around Black leadership. There's a sentiment around dramatic change. But look what Representative Cori Bush of Missouri said this year's conference. She said, this year's conference is important for members of Congress to be able to, quote, meet face to face with the people and tackle policy concerns that directly affects Black Americans. Here's the thing. She says she also believes this week events can aid in expanding the circle of up and coming Black political leaders. Let's that's the point. Those who have come before us, who have paved the way, who have blazed the trail, they cut down the roots. You know, if you're going through the jungle, they're the ones out front. They're cutting it. They're using a machete. They just cutting through all of the brushes and all of the trees and all of the foliage and all of that stuff, right? But behind them, you got the young warriors. And if there isn't a mechanism to start funneling some of these brilliant thoughts like a Rashad and others, y'all seen them on this show, because I take pride in highlighting some of the young, brilliant Black thinkers and the brilliant progressive thinkers. They're not always Black, but they understand the struggle and the plight of Black people. And so you start to highlight those things, but you got to have a mechanism for it. And imagine that. Okay, so some of us may push back on the idea of having what we saw in 1972, a Black political convention to discuss the possibility of a Black political party. What's stopping the CBC from becoming a clearinghouse? Because they got the veterans, they got those who understand the struggle, they got those who understands the inner workings of government. They could become a clearinghouse in some way, shape, or form for new Black political leadership, like Representative Cori Bush said. I mean, this is look, this is the move we got to make. This is the move we got to make. I don't want to keep burdening all of those older Black leaders, Black political leaders who have put in their time. I'm not talking about whether, they were da-da-da. You know, here's my thing very quickly as we wrap up. I learned some time ago, when we have conversations about Black political leaders, a lot of people tend to look at like a Jesse Jackson, Reverend Jesse Jackson, Reverend Al Sharpton, and they just throw them to the side, right? Because they got a complicated history. But something that I was always taught is that you never throw away the good works of any worker, right? So just in despite how you may see these men and these women, right? I truly believe, and this is me, I may be naive as hell, but I truly believe, even though Jesse probably, was in certain spaces with certain people, and Reverend Al is in certain spaces, and we see some of our Black political leaders, I truly believe that in their heart, they want to see something better. They just got a different view than what I got on how to reach it. But it doesn't mean that they're not valuable. Here's my point on that. My point is this. We can't throw away those who have laid the path, who have laid the steps for us to move forward. Because no other community or group of people do that. Nobody says in the Asian community, they look at Mao Zedong. Nobody says, oh man, he's old. Nobody says, when you look at any group of people, they don't throw away their, oh man, he's old, man. We need something new. They take the good of what that person brought and they build on it. And at this point, I'm not here to destroy people. I'm here to build with people. If we got energy to destroy, let's destroy the system of white supremacy. But if we trying to build, I'm trying to build now. I'll save that destructive energy for the people that are responsible, for the systems that are responsible. But I'm not trying to destroy Black people in the process. I want to build. Let's take the good of what you've done so far. Let's build on that. You got some good ideas? Let's build on that. That's the way we move. Let me just check it in very quickly, very quickly. We're going to take a quick break. And I just want to share with you what some of you are saying. Chris, you said, I agree on the messaging issue. The Democrats getting their message across to all citizens will go a long way. For those apathetic voters who may or may not vote this fall or in future elections. This is right. This is real. So we got a lot of work to do. We got a lot of building. I know about my brother Rashad. He had to drop off and he said he's going to try to come back in, but I want to thank him because I know he was limited time with him. Did we got him? Okay.
Yeah, back on, brother.
I got you. I know you got limited time, bro. So I ain't want to. You know, we just talking, man. Me and the culture crew, man. We just chatting it up.
Important, brother. I think this is important. I think that I'm glad that you took the time to speak on these, right? Because we know it's not being properly communicated, promoted, and broadcasted, but it is still purposeful and it's timely. And we can't use the excuse of ignorance of not knowing to deplete the level of progression and collaborative and intergenerational opportunity and space building that this offers, right? Like you said, that being a sounding board and that being a clearinghouse of who the next elected officials is critical, and it's important that you had taken this time to lift it up.
Hey, let me just throw something in there because I see a couple of my folks checking in, and I appreciate this. This is very quickly as we're going to take a quick pause. I'm going to give you a moment, Rashad. Infamous Kiki, you say, but the old guard call us radicals and throw us under the bus. They don't know.
Yeah.
Kiki, they don't know. You know what I'm saying? And this is why we got to have a conversation about rising above emotion into a certain thinking, because yeah, they do that now, but they do that out of ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? So, but what's more important? To go back and forth with the old guard, or to say, okay, old guard, that's you, but we still gonna go higher. I'm trying to, you know what I mean? Like I don't wanna go back and forth with the people that laid the path. And I know some of them are, but that's not all of them. That's not all of them. We work with those who want to work with us to build a better future. We may not be able to get them all. We may not be able to get them all, Kiki, but you know what? I'm going to work with those old guard who say, all right, well, we see some value in what y'all saying. Look, I am tired. Y'all got the energy. Y'all got the fearlessness. Y'all take it to the next 50 yards. Y'all take it down the stretch. Take it to the home stretch. Because you mean to tell me out of those 58 members, they all feel like they want to hold us back? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. And this is the part about the generational piece very quickly, Rashad. We have a conversation with them, and it could be a closed door conversation. Be like, look, man, y'all been holding the reins for too long. Y'all not trying to help. Now, are you going to help? Or you want to position yourself where you now the enemy of the generation that you've been praying for? Because we the answers to your prayers. Mm-hmm. You said you want a generation that's fearless. Here, bing bong, here we are. You say you want a generation that's not concerned about the norms, the current norms. Here we are. You said you want a generation that sees the big picture of progress. Here we are. Mm-hmm. You said you want a generation that's going to you want to live to see the systems of injustice and inequity being broken down. Then use us as the tool.
Yeah.
We don't have to go to war with our elders. And if they want to go to war with us, just politely pull them up on a card. Like, do you know what you're doing? Like, why are you going to war with me when you prayed for me? Mm-hmm. This ain't Frankenstein, baby, where you start to go to war with the thing you created. Ain't gonna make no progress like that. Well, you ain't doing it right. How about you give me a chance? Because we gave you years. We gave you years. And this is a different time. that require a different approach. And most of us in this generation, we are connecting with white people, Latino brothers and sisters, Native Americans. We could bring a whole coalition of folks to be a part of the conversation. It ain't just gonna have to be just black. Because white people are getting to a better consciousness. We had a conversation about that yesterday. Native Americans, Asian, I'm talking about the young college student, the young professional. You work with them too, Rashad, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They're not in the same frame of mind as our parents and our grandparents.
Yeah.
And that's by design. The consciousness is different. Let's tap into the consciousness of each one of those communities and be like, well, look, don't y'all tired of this stuff too? So I just wanted to kind of put that out there. You know what I'm saying? Like we do have to remind Corinna of Conscious Thought. You said we must teach and remind our young people that it was young people who were always the leaders of our movement. And guess what? The people that are running the CBC, they know that, because guess what? They were young when they got into the movement.
Correct. See that.
Al Sharpton was 18 when he went to the Black Political Convention in 1972. He was a young man. They'll give you a little pushback, but then you have to remind them, people like, wait a minute, Congresswoman, what, you 17 when you heard? Yes, you're right. You're right. Give us our chance. Let's work together. I'm telling you, I'm not going back and forth with no elders, man. We're going back and forth over strategies and tactics. The end goal is still the same. All right, Bashar, go ahead, brother. We got to take a quick pause. What's your take?
No, I think that humbling approach of reminding those of how they started to where they are now is always the best approach, especially in progressive movement building. And like I said, I think with the humble approach to being service oriented, in addition to having knowledge of the historical transition and progression of it, is important, right? The last audience member that was watching and gave the comment spoke to, these safeguards and these gatekeepers and not passing that baton. But we got to be mindful, like you said, that we have seen this in every movement that we've had as a Black person, right? Yep. We have seen John Lewis uproot the seating of Martin Luther King when operating from SNCC. We have seen Stokely Carmichael take the seat from John Lewis, right, which is now Kwame Ture, because he thought that the approaches was of nonviolence and submissive action towards white supremacy and things was outdated, right? We see the emergence of the Black Panther Party that understood the militarization and defending our people amongst police and law enforcement. These have always been that purposeful, I want to say conflict of progression that we have to challenge and make sure that we are modernizing our approaches and our outlook of our communities, right? We have always seen that, and we have always seen that. And what's more importantly to lift up and honor is that the CBC weekend allows us to bring back that purposeful intergenerational approach of the critical issues, because we are all dealing with it and navigating it in itself. So conflict is not always a bad thing when we are always aligned to what is the larger picture. And the larger picture in itself is the fight is never over until we don't have to fight again.
There it is.
Still fighting. We may have to pick new guards, new generals, and new leaders, and still have the same framework that can still change the world today.
Hey, look, very quickly as we wrap this part of the conversation up. I'm a true believer that the condition and the place that we find Black America in, the hands of the divine is over us still. Even in our darkest moments, even in the struggle, even in the pain, even during the injustice and the inequities, even during all the hatred, I truly, truly believe that the divine hand is over our struggle. So we are at a point that and this is the part of it that we tend to forget about. We don't want to think about. We think it's just policy, political, economy, social. But there is a universal, I would say, divine movement that's happening because of the consciousness of people are changing. Policy don't necessarily change consciousness. It's other things that get people to think differently, right? Policy helps, But that is an effect of a cause. The cause is people are changing their thinking. So we got to look at that side of the conversation as well, Rashad, that this is not just some ragtag situation. This is a divine situation. Because how long do you think Black people are supposed to be oppressed? See, once you start to remove that part of it, once you start to take this conversation to the next level, like, we're not just fighting for policy. We're talking about the ending of oppression for Black people in this country. And that's what we're looking at, despite all of these changes. There is still, the ultimate goal is that we are free. We ain't slaves no more. We are free. So since we are free, let's stop thinking like we still enslaved. Let's start thinking like free men and women. We are free today. We move around this country as we want. And we take ownership of this country because we built it, because we are free men and women. We are free today. So I'm not going to Washington, going to any policymaker with my hat in hand, hoping and wishing upon a star that things change. I'm going there with power. I'm going there united with my brothers and sisters and others who have been marginalized. I'm going there because I want to end the oppression. And with that desire, we can't lose. We can't lose. We may not all get to see the fruits of this struggle, of the fruit of our labor during the struggle, but trust and believe, if we make the conscious decision to say enough is enough, our children won't have to bear the brunt of being oppressed. Your children, my children, no one's children, because we are free. That's what nature is called for. That's what the divine is called for. We are free. All right, we got to stop that right there. Because we go on all day, brother, with you.
Hey, man. Purposeful conversation. Let's take
We'll
this
go all day. You know what I'm saying? So I got to stop it right there, man. I appreciate you, Rashad. I know you got to hop off, but I truly, truly appreciate you, man. Thank you so much, man. As always, we didn't get to our other conversation, but we'll get back to it. But Rashad, we needed to say this because it was on our spirit and on our heart. So we'll just leave that right there and then reconnect, God willing, sometime next week with you. All right, brother?
Always, brother. Always for the culture. Thank you for being purposeful, man. We have nothing to lose but our chains.
There it is. Facts, facts, facts. My big brother Rashad checking in. All right, it's always good to talk to him. Peace, brother. All right, folks, I got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's shift gears. Let's talk about mental health. Let's talk about how one hip-hop artist is deciding to take a stab at changing the conversation around mental health. And we'll have that conversation with Culture Crew member Neil Muhammad and so much more. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network. We are free.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Man, oh man, I'm feeling really good this afternoon, folks. I'm feeling so good. It is Friday. We got a lot to talk about, and I'm just so happy that many of you are checking in. If you are a new watcher, welcome to The Culture. If you're involved, if you're in our Facebook chat or if you're in our YouTube chat, man, oh man, I know my online culture crew got you. They got you hook, line, and sinker. I know that conversation is so good. I have my laptop right here, so I'm often reading what many of you are talking about, and y'all get so fired. Y'all fire me up. See, that's what I'm saying. That's how the energy goes. Y'all get me fired up. So that's why I'm looking at the crowd. I'm like, yeah, let's go. So thank you all so much for your support of that. Make sure y'all continue to support us here at Black Star Network because it is absolutely essential. We are taking this thing to the next level. So your support is very, very important and highly critical. Make sure y'all check us out at blackstarnetwork.com, blackstarnetwork.com. You can support us financially. You can share the content and so much more. And you can find some exclusives on there as well as some of the streaming things, the streaming content that we have going right now, like the CBC coverage that's going to be happening this week. You don't want to miss out on hearing what Black political leaders are saying all across the country and what's being discussed on the behalf of us as Black America. So again, blackstarnetwork.com is the place to go to get that news and information. All right. Also, make sure y'all hit me up on my social media. You can follow me at Farajii. I'm on Instagram at It's The Real Farajii on Instagram, Farajii on Twitter, Farajii Muhammad on Facebook. Your connection with me helps me a lot. So many of you have been sending me messages and everything. Trust and believe I will respond to these messages. Man, I get so overwhelmed, and I'm gonna just let y'all in a little bit into my head. I get overwhelmed with joy and emotions because some of you are saying so many great things about how you enjoyed the show, how you appreciate, what we say, what we present, and all of these things. And, for me, that energy is just like, I got to process it because this is a labor of love, folks. This is a real labor of love. Like who you see me as is this. It's not no filter. I'm not like, oh, this way on the show. And then you see me, I was like, oh boy, here's this guy. No, this is a labor of love. So if I haven't responded to you, please don't get mad at me. But I appreciate each and every one of you for checking in, sharing, keeping me up to date on what's going on. Because I can't see everything. My team can't. We don't always know every big stories that's coming up. So don't think that we're not reading, that I'm not checking out what you're saying, because I am. So again, connect with me, The Real Farajii on Instagram, Farajii on Twitter, and Farajii Muhammad on Facebook. Let's jump into another part of the conversation, which is something that I think is near and dear to us. This is the conversation about mental health awareness and having the discussion about therapy and getting the necessary services and resources that you need when you're dealing with mental health issues. Now, we know that mental health has unfortunately become like a catchphrase. A lot of people have talked about stopping to doing things in their professions, from athletes to entertainers. And now there's a whole conversation about therapy. There's a whole conversation about getting some help. There's a whole conversation about self-care and healing. And so we wanted to just add to this conversation because hip hop artist Megan Thee Stallion. Y'all know, if you don't know who Megan Thee Stallion is, actually, Meg The Stallion, she is a phenomenon in and of herself. Well, she decided to branch into the mental health space. And it's not because she just wanted to do something. She actually has when she talked about going to school, she gone to school to deal with mental health services. And that's what her degree is in. It's like, how do you provide those social and human services to people who need them most? So as we talk about the story, just keep that in mind. This is not about her trying to figure out what the next wave is. This is something that she's obviously is very passionate about. But take a look here, folks. Here's what Meg The Stallion has done. We are finding that, and take a look at this, and Keenan, let's post this. On Sunday, she announced, and I can't say this word, so I'm not going to say the word. She announced her Bad Bees Have Bad Days 2 site. Not a fan of the title, but just ride with me on this one, folks. She said, which offers links to external websites and hotlines to mental health services and therapy organizations. The page features a Find a Therapist button that directs users to the American Psychological Association to find a qualified psychologist. She says in a quote, everybody has gone through their own trauma in their own way. And to me, Traumazine, which is her latest album, is me facing the things that I've been running from about myself. It's comforting to know that other people are going through the same thing that you might be feeling. According to the Grammy-winning rapper, she told The Cut in August. I want to, Keenan, when you get a chance, pull up the site. And that's actually, the site is actually Bad B Words Have Bad Days Too. But as we pulling up that site, I want to bring in Culture crew member Anir Muhammad, who is an author. She's a screenwriter, and she's host of the podcast Queen Talks with Nira. Queen's Talk with Nira, and you can find that on all streaming platforms. Season 3 is hot, it's fire, it's already kicked off. So Nira, we want to welcome you back. Always good to chat with you. Where you at? Where you at, Nira? Where you at, dear? Where you at?
Hey, Farajii, always good to be here.
Awesome. So I want to get your thoughts on this, because the fact that Meg The Stallion, who is known for so many different things, from being, she's known for her music, she's known for twerking, she's known for being a part of this wave of female MCs that are, and people, everybody is very critical of Meg The Stallion. Everybody's critical, right? Men and women. But she went into a new space. She launched this new website about, showing mental health. Look at this, folks. There it is. Bad Bees Have Bad Days Too. Wow. Take a look. Now, this is a video of her latest single called Anxiety, and she uses that term. That's one of her bars. Bad, bounce back like bees do, always do. Interesting. Once you get past the language, because I had a chance to, because some people, that once you get past the language, there's actually some really good stuff on it.
Yeah.
All right, y'all hear that right there?
I hear it.
Go ahead, Kenan.
I'm a bad bitch and I got bad anxiety. People call me rude because I ain't letting them try.
Wow. There
I
it
love
is.
that.
So this is interesting. So there's a conversation about whether mental health therapy and all this stuff. What's your take on this? I mean, she's putting it in a very different, in her own way, but it's still leading to encourage folks to get help when they know that they may not know that they need it. What's your take on that?
So when I first heard the name, of course, first of all, let's keep in perspective how old we are in comparison to Meg The Stallion. I am almost a decade older than Meg The Stallion. And so I had to keep that in perspective, that one, the reason why I like what she's doing is that she's meeting people where they are. I'm not the audience that Meg is trying to get. So of course the name is going to be a little off-putting for me. But again, that's okay, because I am not her target audience. But I do think this is really great, because what Meg has done here with this website is not something new. There are tons of websites that offer mental health links and help and awareness, but are they being followed by Meg The Stallion's fans? Probably not. They probably don't think about those sites. They probably don't go to those sites. And so she's tapping into a different generation of young people who, and even women my age. I mean, I'm a fan of Meg The Stallion. I listen to her music, but I also don't take what Meg The Stallion says as face value because I'm, getting 10 years her senior damn near. So, it's a different connection there. But I think that what she's doing is really great because while we do see all these images of her twerking and shaking her ass, she's showing like that's not the only side of me that there is. And, I'm a huge advocate for women being their multi-colorful, multicultural selves. Like, we are multifaceted. We are not just one thing. You don't have to, just because you have a degree doesn't mean you can't twerk. And just because you twerk doesn't mean you can't have a degree. So I love that entire messaging that she's putting out there.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. And it's interesting because as we have this conversation, and I'm going to be bringing Brother Shanadu into this discussion in a moment, but as we have this conversation, there's still some resistance to this idea there of therapy. There's still some resistance to, us having a real discussion about the importance of therapy and the importance of us doing some self-correction within our mental health. And also, there's still a lot of people are saying, and I'm gonna quote my brother here who checked in. I think this is this Truth is Power? No, this is not Truth is Power. Who said this? And Real Brooklyn. You said mental health is being tossed around like the phrase "hit me on Instagram." This issue is way more complicated than we know, and it's being used too often from folks who are using it as an excuse. So we got all types of dynamics to kind of serve as as resistance against having a very real conversation about the mental health and well-being of people.
I think that's the sad part. I think for one, I think it's really sad that the first thing people go to is saying that this is like a joke and that people are using mental health as a buzzword. That's damaging in itself. That's damaging to the people who are really in need of mental health. First of all, let me just say, because y'all, oh my gosh, Farajii, there's so many different avenues we can look at this from. I see so many young women saying shit on social media like, I'm bipolar. And I'm just like, this is a cultural thing. I see a lot of Black women throwing that term around on social media. And I'm like, no, you're not. You need therapy. You need to learn how to better communicate. You need to learn listening skills. You know what I'm saying? So it's not necessarily that you're bipolar. It's just you don't know how to communicate with people. You don't know how to express yourself. Maybe you just need some therapy, or maybe you just need to learn some different type of communication skills. But mental health is not a game. It's not a joke. It's actually really funny that you have me on here talking about this today, because I saw that a few of my friends from high school and college recently went to a live podcast showing from, it's a very popular podcast called Cocktails, where two Black women, they discuss sex and other topics, which I think is great. I think it's very empowering for women to be able to openly have discussions about sex. I was like, you know what, that's really cool. I wanted to follow them. I followed them on Instagram. The very first video that I ever saw of them, they were literally making fun of men who say that they're in therapy. So we already have an issue getting Black men to even go to admitting, one, they need therapy. Two, picking up the damn phone or whatever the case may be and finding a therapist, making that appointment, taking that step. That's already hard in itself. And now we have Black women who have about 41,000 followers just on their Instagram. They're going on tour all over the United States, having these conversations, and women are tapped in and women are listening to this. So not only did they make fun of Black men who say that they go to therapy, one of them said that therapy was boring. She made fun of therapy. It was boring to her. The other one said, oh yeah, therapy's cool when you're stressed out, but once you're good, it's just a waste of money. We started talking about cocktails, and it was just so fucking damaging to the entire need and basis and foundation that we need, like that we should be setting to get young people to want to go to therapy. Yeah. So I instantly just was upset. And so, this literally just happened yesterday. And I was just and I said that. I was like, this is like, I forgot exactly what I said, but I'm like, this is damaging. Like, therapy is very serious. And I think that when someone does say that they're in therapy, if you're someone who is dating, for instance, and because that was their big things, like if you're dating and a guy's like, I'm in therapy, why not discuss it further? Yes, that's a perfect opportunity. Maybe he is lying. That's what they were alluding to, him lying, just to try to get, in your drawers or whatever the case may be. But I just hate that. I don't think that's fair. I don't like that messaging put out there to the masses because it's just very damaging.
You know what? And that is the hard part about this, right? And if you have Black women making fun of Black men going to therapy or other Black women going to therapy, right? Like, to me, how is that for the culture?
It's not.
You know what I'm saying?
It's so counterproductive to all the things that we need. You know what I mean? Even for Black men and Black women, even in love, even in us coming together and dating, we need to be able to open up. Why is it that we can have these conversations about Black women needing mental health, but the moment it becomes to the Black man, now he's just using it as like clickbait to try to get your number? Like, come on, sis. If that's what you think, then that says something about the kind of men that you date. And I just want to put that out there too. If you're making fun of the whole culture of men wanting to go out there and get therapy and you think it's funny, maybe you need to check yourself, because maybe it's the type of men that you're dating. And that's why you can't trust it when they say, oh, I'm in therapy, you can't take it seriously. But I would never, ever discourage Black men or Black women, no matter what age you are. Children need therapy. I've seen therapy work miracles for children as an educator. Hell, therapy worked miracles for me. I would never downplay the necessity that therapy played in my life. And I also want to challenge you. If you get a therapist that you don't like, that's okay. You can shop around. That's why there's so many different therapists out there. You find a therapist that fits your needs. Yep. It's not a game. Yep. I never went to therapy thinking like, oh shit, we about to just cut up like two homegirls. Yes, I was comfortable enough to discuss things with her like she was a homegirl, but it was serious. And she gave me homework and she was like, she held me accountable.
Let me tell you, same thing for my therapist. Same thing for my therapist. And one of the things I would say is that self-work is serious business. Self-work is serious business. If you're trying to go back, if you make the conscious decision to go to therapy, because nobody can change you, right? You have to make a decision to be changed within yourself. So if you make the conscious decision to go and see a professional, and I'm going to emphasize this very quickly, folks. This thing is not about just talking to your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother. And I get that it's good to have the support system of family and friends, right? But I'm talking about a licensed professional who don't know you. So the bias is very minimal, right? Yep. It's who don't know you and who's able to deal with trauma and any type of other pain and struggle that you may have. A licensed professional, because there's a way to do that. For those of us,
you're not going to come to me to fix your car. You know what I'm saying? We only go to mechanics to fix our car, but then you know what I'm saying? So we have to people are trained in what they are trained for a reason, Farajii. We're always trying to like reinvent the wheel, but no, like if there's someone that is trained to do something, go to them. Don't get me wrong. This is not saying take out those conversations with your elders, take out those conversations with your sisters, or whoever the case may be, your friends, your family, whatever the case may be. Yes, have those conversations with them, because that can also be a part of your journey to healing from whatever you may need to heal from. But I am 1000% a huge advocate for therapy. Huge. And yes, therapy can be expensive, but guess what? A lot of times, even when you have insurance through the state, they don't tell you this, but you can get at least 6 sessions for free, even if you have like Medicaid or and then like through your job, there's a certain amount of sessions that you can get. I was able to go through Johns Hopkins, and I was able to only have to pay like $5 out of pocket for a therapy session from and it was amazing. And I was literally going through Hopkins. So there's so many resources out there. If your child needs therapy, go to your school counselors. Go to your you have school counselors, and some schools have school community coordinators. They have people there who need to do their damn job and get those resources for you. If you can't find them, there are people out there who can.
Hey, I want to bring in my other brother. You know him, dear, Sinead.
Sinead, yes.
Other culture crew member, Sinead, my guy, checking in. Sinead, you work in a space of, human resources, diversity, equity, and inclusion. When we talk about this, and I'm saying with Meg The Stallion, again, I applaud Meg I really do applaud Meg. I don't always agree with her. I may not always be feeling her cultural expression, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as a Black woman who is trying to turn a page on something like this, I applaud her for putting out a whole website with resources and things like that. Because once you get past the front of the website and you start to actually click through the website, that's credible, legitimate services. These are institutions, government agencies. These are credible, legitimate services that you can go to get some help. And I'm wondering, Sinead, from your vantage point, bro, like, why is there this kind of like this back and forth conversation, you think, about mental health and therapy and just getting the necessary assistance and help in this? Why isn't everyone a part of the culture and be like, you know what? Yeah, may need to see somebody. I may need to see a licensed professional to resolve some of my personal issues.
Thank you for having me. I'm gonna say a couple of things. I'm gonna shake the room.
Go ahead, shake it.
Couple of reasons. I to be honest, I would say Christianity is one of them, because it's this whole thing of when you have an issue, go to church, and but it's only for specific things. Like when you're starting to feel like you're quote unquote crazy, it's go to church, right? But when you feel sick, it's not go to church, it's go to the hospital. When your car is broken, it's not go to church, it's go to the mechanic. So it's a selectivism within our culture, is one thing. Second is, we believe that this is white, that issues are white, because as Black people, we don't always address our mental issues for many reasons. And I think when I think about Megan Thee Stallion and her bad bitches go to therapy, I think it's genius. And I'm reminded of Malcolm X and his whole concept of by any means necessary. I think people forget what that actually means. Look at two examples of why what Megan Thee Stallion is doing is ingenious. Look at the opioid epidemic, and let's just stay on the opioid epidemic. At first, when it came to opioids, no, not opioids. People who did heroin. At first, it was, telling everybody that they needed to stop, they need to stop. And then researchers realized that actually people are dying because they're not doing it cleanly. So then it became safe needle exchange programs like the one that we have in Maryland. And then you realize that the deaths go down. What does that mean in this context? You said earlier that, Megan Thee Stallion using the terms, you don't like the terminology. But the thing is, the people who need the services the most are the people who speak the language that she speaks.
I said that. True.
Her title is perfect for her.
Yep. Hey, look.
Yep.
Personally, I know. You know what I'm saying?
It's like she's meeting her audience where they are.
I get Absolutely. It. I totally get it. So that's why I'm not gonna harp on the title. Like I say, it's a little jarring to say, bad bees don't have bad days. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I just got issue with the word, the B word, but I get that. I totally get it. So, but I'm not going to harp on it.
He is so bad, like with this, like when I say he hates the B word, it is so funny.
I can't do it. I can't. Like, there are two words that I can't get with: the B word and the N word. I can't get it. Even if you try to use the N word as a quote unquote term of endearment,
they take that so serious. Like I remember when I first came into like the Nation of Islam, like they did not play like in MGT. Like they like reprogram you to like take that word out of you, because I'm from Baltimore, me and my girls was bitch, you know what I'm saying? Like having to remove that from my language, it was like, oh, like, you know what I mean? It was hard.
You just got to do it.
But I think it's important to me. But I think that
gotta do it, dear.
I agree with Sinead though, because we have to meet people where they are. Beyonce refers to herself as a bad bitch, and she's someone that Michelle Obama says that she would be if she could. So let's not scare the younger generation off because our old asses are uncomfortable with the language that they use. You know what I mean?
I get it. I mean, but you know what? I'm just gonna keep it real. I would never use the word. I don't use N words. I don't use the B word, and to refer to my people. So I get it. I totally get it. Mm-hmm. But you know what I'm saying? That's just me. But I mean, I think to your point, Sinead, it was ingenious. Like, if you want to get these young people in a better state of mind, and this is the one thing that I've learned about Megan, like once you come into an industry, you put all this energy out there, right? She got a lot of different energy out there of her different facets of who she is. But I think this is probably the first time where she's probably coming into a better understanding of herself.
Yeah, I mean,
not as an artist, but as a person.
Remember, I'm going to use another great example.
Yeah, go ahead, bro.
She lost her mother at the very beginning of her career, where she became popular. And as we see with our good brother that we love dearly, Kanye West, losing your mother, especially losing your mother to anybody, can be hard. But especially when you're in this business, it can even be more difficult. And I applaud her because, this mental health thing, listen, here's the truth. Okay? We're American, right? So a lot of people say, oh yeah, this is a phase, she's just capitalizing. Well, partially that's what America is. So even if she wasn't, that thought that people have is simply because we're American, because it's about capitalizing off of everything. That's just the American.
Right.
But I think why this is a great time, two things are happening around the same time. Black people, and I'm only speaking about Black people when I speak, y'all know that. Black people are accessing their mental health and doing something about it. And simultaneously, Black people are finding their Afrocentric culture. Those two things happening at once are very powerful. When you think about what slavery did, they say that slavery changed our DNA. I think younger generations of people who have certain issues, people my age, I believe we're able to actually experience and talk about many of the pains that our parents couldn't. And when you think about that, you grow older and you realize that, daddy came home from work and he was upset because he couldn't express, right? And some of those experiences have now come on to us, but now we actually want to talk about it. We actually want to put, paper to pen and say, we don't want this to carry over anymore. And I think when you look at artists, the reason why I think it's most important for artists more than anybody else, more than religious leaders, is because artists have been culture drivers from the beginning of time. And when you go back and read about a lot of artists suffered from mental health issues that they probably didn't even know. Some of your favorite people. And I'll close here. When we look at artists as examples of, curators of culture or whatever, they have been slaves to the industry where it's perform, get addicted to drugs, die. That's it. That has been the formula. And I think when you look at now, an artist is saying, hey, I want to take my mental health seriously, not only can that change the entire game, it can also change those who are listening, because it's one thing to get your followers through something different, but it's another thing to get your cohort who have wished that they could say that exact thing that you said about mental health before and get to it. Because I don't know if y'all noticing, a lot of Black people are doing this of all levels. And I think that is powerful, and we won't see its effects probably until a generation after.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why I think that's why I thought it would be a good idea for us to even have a conversation about this. Because, one, we often don't think that hip hop artists are bringing anything of value to the culture other than good music. But then two, just to let folks know, there's a dynamic. Like, and Nero, when we talk about, to Sinead, when he said that we're becoming more Afrocentric, and I truly believe that is the case. I call it an emerging consciousness. You calling us, the way you termed it, Sinead, is talking about us getting back to being in an Afrocentric place. We are all saying the same thing by saying there is something that is happening in the thought process of Black people in this country, right? That is getting to the fundamental, foundation of how we're thinking. And Sinead, to that point you just made, brother, and said, hey, we're seeing the young.
Yeah.
And Nero, I want to get your thoughts on this, because all that pain from the time we were brought here from the transatlantic slave trade, all that pain that was kept inside from in each of one of our families, that they didn't talk about certain things. They didn't put a look at us as the next generation. We're putting it all out. It's like that pain went through 400 plus years, and now we're the generation that's saying enough is enough.
We're also the generation that, like, we came before like technology blew up. We've evolved with technology. And so whereas I think being a kid in the 90s, there was some things we kind of could ignore a little bit. You know, we could kind of push it to the side. But now with social media and with the advancement of technology, everything is so much more important. Everything is so much more. What's that word I'm looking for, y'all? It's like, we got to deal with it now. It's like, it's, you know, it's right there on the forefront. It's urgent. Yes. Everything is so much more urgent. You know what I mean? Like, we've been through now the recession. We've been through so much shit. We've been through 9/11. We've been through the collapse. We've seen banks, you know, what happened with Wells Fargo with Black homeowners. We've seen Freddie Gray. We've seen Trayvon. I mean, we've seen so much. And I think overall, we're like, something has to give. Something has to change within us. Because once something changes within us, that light starts to shine bright enough that we're going to blind other people or we're going to bring them into the light. But either way, we're going to change some shit because we're tired. I truly do believe we are that Joshua generation. We're the generation that's like, nah, enough is enough. I'm tired. Hell, millennials, we're tired of working.
It's so funny you said that, because that was a topic that we talked about the other week, me and Farajii, on the Quiet Quitting episode. I think we are just very blessed to have the privilege, I have to say it in order, to be able to act on the things that our parents could not.
Yeah.
Our parents couldn't fathom our freedom.
Come on, Sinead, dude. Come on, y'all.
Let me tell you why to speak to what you just said, you know, you and I are both Morgan alum. I remember like going into college, my mom was like, I want you to go to school for nursing because there's always going to be a job in nursing. She didn't have even and not saying that there weren't writers before me, obviously, but she didn't in her mind have the vision to say, no, go to school because I know you're a writer. She wanted to make sure that I went to school and got a job or work in an industry that she felt was going to provide me some comfortability. They don't, you know, she didn't come from that generation where our babies are like, no, I want to be an inventor. I'm going to be a YouTuber and I'm going to capitalize off of it. And they are. That shit is like unfathomable for prior generations. They don't even understand like how that's even possible. Like, what? What do you mean? You travel for your job and you're not in board meetings? You're on the beach working? Like, what?
Yeah. I think that's a great point.
Like, nah.
I think both of you are making a great point. I think that is why we are the way we are, because it's divine. I'm going back to this, folks, and I know y'all say it's Friday, it ain't Sunday, Farajii, but look, it's divine. The way we are is divine. We are like different. Like, you know, we always say things like, yo, I'm different. We different. We are legitimately different. Our DNA. And I think that is something, you know, Sinead, you just pointed out, like the very wiring of us as a generation of people who are the sons and daughters of those who have been enslaved, who are the sons and daughters of those who have been afraid, who are the sons and daughters of those who have been blinded by capitalism and racism and injustice. For us to have the fearlessness, for us to have the spirit and the will, and for us to have the vision to be who we say we're going to be, not according to someone else's standards. I think that's right on point. And a lot of people, and I'm saying a lot of our older folks, don't know how to handle that. And even so much, look, you know, and I'm sure, and both of y'all know, because y'all both love history. Y'all know that fear can be passed on from generation to generation. So like there is a real connection between a mother in the period of when we were enslaved and telling her son during that time, don't go against that white man. Don't go against that system. To where we are literally in 2022, where a mother instills a certain level of fear in her son.
We still do that.
That's what I'm saying.
Now that's our conversation with them about the police. We have to have that conversation.
That's what I'm getting to. Exactly. Yep. You know what I'm saying? Like that. So there's a commonality in that. And I think for all of us and those who are watching, we got to ask ourselves the question, when do we stop being afraid?
When we make the decision, Farajii, and I keep bringing up our parents because it's important. It's important for us, and I learned this in therapy. It's important for me not to get upset at my parents. It's for me to understand where their time was and what was going on.
Man.
Yep.
We have to understand that this generation will be the first generation, and mark my words, that are not just surviving, they're thriving. Our parents, if you look at the civil rights and before, they were just surviving, getting by. Now your average 24-year-old graduate from an HBCU can make upwards of $80,000, $90,000. So I think what happens is our parents, for instance, were looking to do whatever they could to provide. We can provide without trying.
And to get along, Sinead do.
And to get along. We can provide without trying. And you know what we realized? Because guess what? To the point Nira was saying, a lot of us did become doctors. A lot of us did become engineers. We got that capital that our parents wanted us to have in that safety. And you know what we realized? We were upset and sad as hell. And a lot of us would throw away those degrees just to be happy. And I think that is where mental health as a way of life. Like I've been hearing about people getting groups of friends to do it, to even talk. When you actually think about it, in my opinion, it may be crazy. Mental health is the journey of re-Africanizing us, because it's the African in us that wants to actually talk about stuff. That is a part of African culture. It is actually white culture to not talk about stuff, for your left hand to not know what the right is doing. So in theory, I think we're actually, it may be called something differently, because remember I said, this is America, where we rebrand things that have already existed and sell them. So I think we're coming back, y'all. We're coming back, and it's a beautiful thing. Farrakhan said it best. We may not be the wisest generation, but we are fearless, because the things that we're doing, when you couple what this generation is doing by attacking their mental health issues and this, that, could you imagine what a cleared mind of this generation could do for the next one? Or even better yet, how a mentally healed millennial can take the knowledge from our elders and then raise an amazing hybrid of the two. That might be what we've been waiting for all of these years. I'm just saying. I'm here for the mental health training. I hope it never ends.
Oh my gosh.
I'm here for it too.
Me to school. You're taking me to school today.
I'm trying to put my foot on anybody's neck who downplays the seriousness and the importance of mental health and therapy.
Thanks.
I'm sick of it. It's not a joke. It's not a game. And I think Shanita said something about this earlier. When you are a content creator, when you're an artist, when you have a following, you have a responsibility, especially, and I'm speaking especially again to the Black community. You have a responsibility to make sure that you are not putting out your own biases and your own ignorances. Do your research, do your homework, and make sure that you are putting out messages that are actually going to uplift this community and not tear it down. You have a social responsibility. And that's all I'm going to say to that. Because I'm so sick of people with these large followings putting out bullshit.
No, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something.
Face value.
And you and I talked about this, dear. The thing is, the numbers don't mean much. it's so interesting that in this day and time, you know, we and both of y'all understand the power of language.
Mhm.
We on social media, we call them followers. But these people won't follow you if you're not leading them to a better version of themselves. See, I don't get like the level of community. And see, there's the one thing to be followers. There's another thing to have a community. And what we have here, for example, on the culture and the work in Black Star, like this is a community. It grows. It's a growing community. But the people that tune into this show, I don't call them followers. These are community members.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Because we share the responsibility and hold each other accountable, right? To being the better part or a better version of ourselves. And so at this point, you can have all the people that be like, oh man, but trust, both of you are saying something I think that we can't overlook, which is we're in a day and time where if you're not feeding the soul of an individual, if you're not healing the mind and the heart of an individual, they not going with you nowhere. That's the day and time we in. Like if I'm tuning into your content and my soul is not being fed, my mind is not being elevated, my spirit ain't being cultivated, my heart ain't being open for love and for me to have a better understanding about the power of love, I'm not listening to that.
Yes, you are. But unfortunately, our young people are though.
And I'm saying that near in the sense of you ain't gonna hold people's attention that long, because in what we're learning is that people are inherently in this day and time. This is where our culture is. People want more. We are hungry for substance. I mean, look, we've been doing this thing. We've been looking at cultural trends, and I'm saying, Sinead Dunir and I, we've been in various spaces looking at cultural trends for years. And guess what? It always comes back to this, and I never forget somebody had told me this when I was a little boy. They say, look, once you become conscious, when you're on that journey to becoming a better part of a better version of yourself, becoming elevated, becoming conscious, it may take that person, and for each one of us, it takes us our respective times to get to that place. You might be at one, and when you were a young girl or little boy, you might have been one way. But when you become in your 20s and your 30s and your 40s, you become a different person. Look, trust and believe, you're always going to come back to it, because now the stuff that we're talking about, the level of consciousness, all that other stuff don't matter. It don't hold water. It don't feed the soul. It don't edify the spirit. It don't do nothing for you. So people could follow you initially, but then after they go down that journey a couple of steps, they realize, like, man, I ain't getting nothing from this. All I'm getting is a quick laugh.
Mhm.
That's why you got hip hop artists now, like some of the older ones, that is, they like, man, I'm tired of talking about shooting and killing and robbing and raping and Nas said it in his song in King's Disease too. He was like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, and I take like some of the messages that's been put out there, the negative message, he says, partly my fault. Like, as you get older, you should be getting wiser.
Mhm.
You shouldn't be getting dumber.
Mhm.
But I think again, so go ahead, Sinead.
No, you go, sister.
I was gonna say really quickly, I think that speaks to why Meg, being the person to put this out, excuse me, is so important, because there's a cultural disconnect between even you, Farajii, from listening to you talk, and a lot of our young people. There's a big social disconnect. And so Meg has that power to tap into that group that's not going to turn on and watch the culture with Farajii. She has that voice to tap into those different groups. And I think that's why it's so important, because to us, we might say, oh, you got to reach this level of consciousness. But hell, I know people in their 40s and 50s that still have zero consciousness. They still love that shit. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all know what I'm talking about.
Hey, so look, that's why they need to tune in.
It takes different people. But that's why I think it's so important for us to have people like Meg The Stallion, because different people are going to tap on and pull on different heartstrings of different individuals that are tapping in. So that's all I wanted to say. So we might have one vision, but again, everyone is not going to think like us. Everyone's not going to be on our same wavelength of consciousness. So we need help from every avenue that we could possibly.
I agree. Hey, look, we're going to wrap up this conversation, and I appreciate both of you. Sinedu, I appreciate you, brother, for hopping in. We're going to certainly reconnect with you next week. Hopefully we can get you back on next Friday, because I'm liking the energy and vibe that you and Nira are bringing on Friday. So, you know, man.
I think he had one more point, and I think you need to let him make it.
Wow.
Listen, I ain't getting in between you two.
Hey, look, you know what? I'm going to humble myself.
I just want to say,
dear brother Sinedu,
I'm always grateful. I'm always grateful to be on here. I'm just glad. I'm glad that you're saying. I'm glad that you brought music back into it when you brought up Nas. I think you said you were talking about Nas.
Yeah.
Do you see all these generation of new artists who are actually singing about wanting to die and depression? XXXTentacion, rest his soul. He was depressed. He talked about it. Little Uzi Vert talked about it in his song. And I think when you really want to know what is going on with your children or your kids, listen to the current music, because they're just like our parents. They're listening to the things that relate to their experience. And I love the church, and I love religion in its totality. But that's half of the problem there as well. We have to talk about that, because that indoctrination of running to the church or to the mosque, wherever, because ain't nobody safe. Okay. And this is not talking down upon that, because I still go to church. But that being the savior to issues when you know that certain things that are going on in that church or in that mosque or in that place are also not always right. And I think one of the saddest things is when somebody can see something that somebody can't. There are some people, Christianity is an easy one, but there are just some people who just say, just keep going to church. But what if that child knows that their problems cannot be solved with the pastor? Because the pastor also might be the problem causing the mental health issue. You know what that's doing? That's why I will say this same generation that we're talking about is probably going to be the most unreligioned generation, because I couldn't even tell you what half my friends are, because a lot of them just do not go to church because they feel like the church failed them. And I wouldn't say the church failed them or religion failed them, but that being the response to every single issue has become a major failure. That's a different conversation. We got to have it. Whole other conversation.
We got to have it.
We got to have it. And you know what? And I can add some additional voices to that, bro. I can answer. I know some young pastors that I'm sure that can speak to it, but we got to have that. You are absolutely right. We got to have that. All right, folks, I got to let y'all go. Sinedu, Nira, thank you so much for this fantastic conversation. Sinedu, how can people, I never really I kind of put y'all out there, but I know y'all want to continue to build your communities too. So Sinedu, first, what's the best way folks can connect with you on social media, brother?
That's dangerous, because I live a crazy life on social media. You can you can listen.
Do you know who you want to
follow me on Instagram at as in the truth. It's spelled EZE the truth. Just follow me.
There it is. All right. Let's talk to Queen over here. Queen, Madam Queen, how you want people to connect with you?
Queen Talks with Nira. Simple, sweet, easy. Queen Talks with Nira. And check out my podcast, season 3.
Queen Talks with Nira. And it's not just a podcast for women.
It's just elevated conversation. Elevated conversation.
There it is right there. Nira, Sinedu, thank you both for being so good for the culture. Truly appreciate and love y'all. Thank you.
Love you too, brother.
Have a great weekend, guys. All right, that's going to do it for me. I hope and pray that the conversation was for you, that you enjoyed it, folks. Big shout out to my online culture crew. Y'all been riding strong. I can't thank y'all enough. So thank you for tuning in. Make sure that y'all continue to show your support for us and the work that we're doing here at Black Star Network, blackstarnetwork.com. We are streaming a number of things on the network right now when it comes to the issue of course, giving you continuing coverage of the Congressional Black Caucus 51st Annual Legislative Conference that's happening this week in Washington, D.C. Will be happening throughout the weekend. It ends out on Sunday. So make sure y'all check out that. And plus, we got some other events that we've been streaming right there on Black Star Network. So your support matters the most. Make sure you continue to support us here at Black Star Network. I thank each and every one of you. Man, just a different Friday, just a different vibe, different energy. But I'm so happy that we've had our fantastic culture crew near Muhammad Shanadu, Raquel Ford, for Rashad. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Make sure y'all continue to check them out on the great work that they're all doing. And this truly, truly would be appreciated. All right, folks, 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Big Brother Roland's coming at you with Roland Martin Unfiltered. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we will talk on Monday for another exceptional show right here on the Black Star Network. Make sure y'all follow me on IG at The Real Farajii, Twitter Farajii, and Farajii Muhammad on Facebook. And I look forward to reconnecting with y'all on Monday so we can continue to have the conversations. All right. Talk to you soon. Have a great weekend. Be safe, be peaceful, and most importantly, be yourself. Peace.